Hey, everybody. My name is Mariano. That sexy guy over there is Brent. He told me to call him that. You are listening to the Dog Trainers Podcast. So today we are going to be going over structure. It's something that people tend to have a hard time with, either because they're not quite sure what it means or what it looks like in practice, or maybe they feel bad implementing structure altogether. So we'll be getting into what it is, how you can benefit from it, what you should be doing. Stick around.
Welcome to the Dog Trainers Podcast, a podcast created by dog trainers, for dog trainers, or anyone who's ever fallen in love with man's best friend. Please join us in episode 4 as we discuss the importance of structure, what it is, and how to implement it in your home with your dog. Welcome back, everybody. This is Brent LaBrada with the Dog Trainers Podcast. We want to welcome you guys back to our third episode, which is revolving all around the ideas and concept of structure with our dogs. Now, as a dog trainer and a dog owner, the idea of structure was pretty vague when I first started, right? We knew that it had something to do with schedules and routines and certain practices that needed to be put into place. But what I realized throughout the years is, it's really hard to describe something that you yourself weren't good at. Right. And it's really hard for you to give advice on something that you yourself weren't good at. Now, a couple things I learned being a young dog trainer, working with other experienced dog trainers, is there were things that we would do naturally in our regimens and our day-to-day practices that would actually provide structure, and I was completely unaware of it. And because I was unaware of it, I developed kind of this hidden knowledge of what to do, but I had no idea exactly how to explain it, how to break it down, and how to interpret it in a way that a client could understand it with their new puppy or a rescue or anything like that, right? And so today, what our hopes are for any new dog trainers listening, old dog trainers that are having a hard time explaining this, or just people who are suffering with maybe not being able to implement proper structure, we want to really break down to you guys what it means from our perspective. And we hope that today's episode is really useful for you. All right. So Mariano, when you're dealing with clients, what kind of things do you run into in regards to structure?
I run into a few different things. So you find the client who hears you and they want to be on board with what you're saying, but they don't quite know what structure is. And so they'll either work on stuff and only kind of take it for face value. So it'll be like, yeah, I crate my dog, I heal my dog, I do obedience throughout the day and I exercise him, but he's been good. And a lot of times they'll kind of slack a little and then the dog will start reverting backwards and they're like, I don't know what happened. And we have to find out by asking questions that, I mean, I guess I haven't been crating him when I wasn't home. So he has had
Right.
time to bark at people. And then there's the other type of owner who just feels bad and they kind of assume that structure is limiting. It's like prison. It's not something that they really feel like they want to do or that they should have to do.
Right. Right. And I guess what would you say is like the number one cause that people fall off of the structure or, maybe don't continue to provide structure?
I think what causes people to fall off is just they don't understand the value of structure and of continued structure, and they get it in very simple terms. Like, yeah, I understand. They even sometimes they'll kind of look at you like, like annoyed because they think you think they're dumb. Or say, yeah, I get it. Sit down. I know all the stuff. But
Hmm.
it's really the magic is in helping them understand that over time, it's a transformative thing. If you're teaching a dog how to sit, how to lay down, how to be patient, how to be focused, the dog learns other things along the way. And a quick example that I like to give is my little brother. So my little brother, when I was still living at home, he was 17, and I would go to the gym really early in the day just because I'd like to start my day with the gym. And
Hmm.
so he came to me one day and was like, it was really early, like before school, even like 4 or 5 ish. So he came to me one day and was like, "Hey, can I start going with you?" And I said, "Sure." And so
Hmm.
I get up in the morning, I go to his room. He's already awake, ready to go. He's excited. First day with Big Brother in the gym. We go and we work out.
Nice. He's
You know,
motivated, super motivated.
yeah, but a couple days in, I go wake him up like the third day and he's still asleep.
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Come on, man, get up." He gets up, we go. Fourth day, "Come on, man, get up." He doesn't want to go. And I made
Right.
him go. And the thing is, I don't care how strong he is, what he looks like, but he said he wanted to go. I don't care how strong his bench press is. But the thing is, it's not workouts that I am interested in. It's teaching him the importance of being punctual, of sticking to your word, of making sure that you set aside, things like, I think I'm tired or whatever the case to get the job done. There are
Right.
lessons that you learn kind of by proxy when you're teaching obedience. A dog knows how to sit. You can teach a dog how to sit in like a few lessons. But to
Right.
really get them to understand it is, will the dog hold the sit even when there's like another dog walking by, or even when the mailman comes to the door? It's
Right.
sit and patience, and then it's sit and focus, and then it's these other things. And people don't quite understand how structure can slowly kind of encompass a dog's well-being and just take it to another place.
Right, totally. And so kind of what I'm picking up from you, you're saying that certain regiments and certain activities and certain practices in regards to structure, they have kind of indirect benefits and indirect effects on the overall psychology and behavior of a dog, as they do with people, right? As they totally do with people. And one thing that I kind of relate to is, we call it adulting, right? I remember
I don't
being
think.
adulting. And I remember being just a younger kid, in my early 20s. And, we kind of lived our life doing as we wanted, stay up late. I remember going to bed at 2 in the morning and then having work at 6:30 in the morning.
Right.
So, back then we could do stuff like that. But over time, what happens is you start seeing how the lack of structure in your own personal life can actually affect your mental states, your mood, how you can be fatigued more easily. You don't perform well at work. And so there's kind of like just simply by going to bed on time, making certain sacrifices for, certain things that I wanted to do, even though I wanted to do them, I didn't necessarily, I had to tell myself, you can't do that right now because your job, your reputation, whatever it is that I found to be more important had to actually prevail in those
Right.
circumstances,
And I think
right?
a quick note that, before you continue is just, when you say making sacrifices, we're always sacrificing something. There's always a
Right.
decision. But the key is with structure, in any sort of context, dogs, people, you have to sacrifice the thing that needs to go away anyway.
Right.
Right. So, like, choosing not to eat that cheesecake is still a choice. You're still sacrificing I guess, the short term pleasure of it. But
Right. I'm still working on that one, by the way. So,
yeah, well, it's all about choosing the thing that benefits you, that truly benefits you. So it's not
true.
really a sacrifice.
True. Yeah, I totally agree with you. And so, this is a dog training podcast, and people might be wondering, why the hell are you talking about a human experience? Like, we all know adulting, we all know regiments, we all know schedules, and what we're really trying to get to is we want everybody to relate to this experience, because if it works for us, then you guys totally will get by the end of this podcast why it works for dogs,
Right.
right? Um, so keep listening and take some notes if you guys want, because let's go ahead and start diving into it. Okay,
Okay.
I've asked a couple of my clients, what is structure to you? And I hear a lot of common words being used, buzzwords, if you will. It's really important for me right now to bring these buzzwords to the forefront, because sometimes as a teacher, we might use certain words that socially are interpreted differently by the learner or the audience, right? And so I want to bring some of these words up. And if we can, just kind of maybe riff on what common interpretations are. Now, this data that we've collected, I've literally interviewed my clients, many of my clients before this podcast. Hopefully I'm not just making any of this stuff up. So here we go. All right. One buzzword that I want to talk about in regard that I hear a lot when we talk about structure is people will say the word discipline,
Mhm.
right? And what I've learned is that a lot of times when the word discipline is used in regards to dog training or dog ownership, already socially there's kind of this interpretation that discipline means to reprimand or to punish, right? Because we've heard phrases like, you need to discipline that dog, or you need to discipline that kid, or you need to discipline that employee. And usually that means get them in trouble, right?
Right.
And so what thoughts do you have on that?
No, I agree. So I think that people have this habit of, they associate structure with discipline, which is, well, they associate discipline with punishment, which is
Right,
wrong, but to
right,
associate structure with discipline is right. And I think that where people got the idea is, when you say, "Oh, that dog needs discipline," and they mean, a correction, or they mean punishment, or whatever the case.
right, right.
The idea behind it is if you correct the dog, while discipline and punishment aren't directly the same thing, correcting, well-timed, like appropriate corrections can lead to a more disciplined dog. So they
Right.
they kind of say it in this way that's not exactly accurate, but that's what they're kind of getting at.
Right. Okay. I get that. Um, and I think, we hear phrases a lot like we know that the word discipline doesn't mean to hit anyone or hurt anyone, right? Because, for
Yeah.
example, martial arts is a discipline, yoga is a discipline, meditation is a discipline. These things that are very, other than the martial arts, it's non-combative stuff, right? And so, discipline can be misinterpreted to mean reprimand and punishment. But when we talk about it as dog trainers, really what we're talking about is we're talking about regiments, right? We're creating a predictable schedule of events or behavior. In essence, when we talk about discipline, we're literally talking about one of the most important words in dog training is the word consistency,
Right.
right? We want our clients to be disciplined, aka consistent, right? And honestly, as part of a human living the human experience, being consistent is very difficult, right? It's very difficult for the average person, and so this is where sometimes I feel. A lot of people fall off, right? They might do something strong for a week, and then fall off on day 8, day 10, and then little by little they plateau and it kind of just fades out, right?
Right.
So when we say discipline, we mean creating consistency in the dog, so that way the dog can predict things, either predict a schedule, predict events, or predict a behavior that you're going to have or that the environment's going to implement,
Yeah, and I
right?
wanted to be clear about one quick thing when it comes to discipline and it comes to, corrections, let's say, like the appropriate name for what people mean when they say the word discipline.
Hmm.
The idea, an appropriate correction, good timing, good fervor, or whatever the word for like nothing over the top or nothing too subtle, just
Hmm.
right.
Hmm.
It can create discipline because if a dog knows what's going on, you correct for a certain behavior because they completely understood what you expected and then willfully chose to do something else.
Right.
What ends up happening over time, just like anything else, it's a function of repetition. The dog starts to build their own sense of structure. How do I avoid this correction and instead seek out reward?
Yeah, and
That's discipline.
whether it's a correction or just opposition, right? Like my owner will always say get off the counter, or my owner will always, make me sit at the front door as a habit, right? So
Right.
discipline is one of those words that if dog trainers use it, they don't mean to punish or reprimand your dog. Okay. Thank you for listening to the Dog Trainers Podcast, a podcast created by dog trainers for dog trainers or anyone who's ever fallen in love